Today we are going to discuss a different topic. Till now you have been listening to a lot of evidence-based medicine. Today we will be discussing how to apply this evidence-based medicine into day-to-day practice so as to improve our outcomes in our settings. So the objectives of the today's talk are: what is quality of care? Why we need quality in healthcare delivery systems? How do we deliver quality of care in our settings? What are the benefits of adopting QI in our day-to-day working? Friends, as you all of you are aware that in the recent couple of decades, the health outcomes in the lower and middle income countries like India have improved vastly. But because of the changing health needs, the growing public expectations, and ambitious health goals, so the bar of quality is constantly being raised. So what we need is a high quality health system, meaning our health system should continuously improve and maintain health. People should have trust in our health system, and our health system should respond to the changing health needs of the population. This is a literature review which was published in the Lancet of 2018 regarding the care delivery in the low and middle income group countries. And they came out with a statement that the care that people receive is often inadequate, and poor quality of care is common across conditions and countries, with the most vulnerable population faring the worst. Now, what is the basis of this statement? As you can see from this graph, there are some basic health interventions and the statistics of around 112 countries which are low or low middle income group countries, and the appropriate treatment which the people receive in those countries. So regarding antenatal care, the TT injections and iron, the appropriate treatment received is by around 40 to 70% only. As far as child health is concerned, so the oral rehydration therapy for diarrhea and antibiotics for pneumonia within 24 hours, the coverage is approximately 40 to 70%. Antiretroviral therapy for HIV, the appropriateness is around 50 to 80%. Whereas the minimally adequate depression treatment is dismally less than 10% across these 112 countries. This is the data. So we'll just go through an example from a low middle income group country and try to understand why this happens in these countries. So Uganda, there is a high incidence of HIV. So like primary healthcare, they have some primary HIV clinics where a doctor, few staffs, then the receptionist, the pharmacist, the lab people, and consisting of a clinic, sort of primary clinic, HIV clinic, where they examine the patient and do some blood test and give medicines to them. So they had decided that we should measure the nutritional status of the children coming to this clinic, the HIV clinics, HIV children. So as all of you know, this is the tape which is used to measure the mid-arm circumference. This is how we do it. And they found that the percentage of patients whose nutrition status assessed was dismally low, that is almost 0%. So as routinely what we do is they try to find out the causes. Somebody said there may be a training issue, so they took those staff and doctors and everybody to training center, train them and send them back to the clinics. So what was expected was some improvement in the measurement of this mid-arm circumference. But even after training, there is no change in the measurement statistics. So somebody said then probably they are not having the commodities, the tapes and all those things which are needed. So the commodity was delivered to them, and despite that, the percentage still remained close to 0. One fine day, the percentage rose to 100. Now how this happened? Either this is a false record or they are working hard, everybody is working hard, and so the percentage has raised. But what's the reason? What's the motivation behind that? So there was a supervisory visit. And on the day of supervisory visit, everybody worked very hard. The receptionist also said that I will measure. The nurses did. The pharmacist also did. The doctor also did, thinking that the others might miss it. And they did very hard work on that day, and that's why the percentage was close to 100. But the moment the supervisory visit was over, the motivation was gone, and the percentage dropped drastically. So now here, what they decided was they wanted to do. It's not that they don't want to work. They wanted to document the measurements appropriately to all the children coming to their clinics. So what they did was they had a meeting and they decided that we will designate a particular staff to do the measurement work. And that was the change idea they introduced in their system. And their percentage of measurement improved very fast to around 70 to 80%, with little fluctuations depending upon how the busy the staff was. And sometimes when the staff was busy with other work, some of the patients also missed it, and they went directly, took the file and went directly to the consultant, and therefore their measurement was not done. So then again they decided to have a meeting, and they discuss their process completely. That patient comes in, registers, the nurse takes the measurement, then the patient goes to the doctor, doctor orders test, patient gets the test done, comes back to doctor, doctor writes prescription, the patient goes to pharmacist, takes tablets, and then goes to the home. But despite doing the system change, that is designating a staff, the percentage was fluctuating between some around 40 to 70, 80%. And they wanted to improve it. The doctor said, no, we want to do to almost each and every child. So they again had a meeting. And this time they included the attendance into the meeting. So the community participation was there. And the attendants also said that it is not that easy. We come here every month for visits. So what we can do is we can also measure the circumference and document it. We can also help you. And that is how they could sustain the work. So friends, the message here is every system is designed to give the same result year after year unless we decide to change. So if you go on continuously doing the same work year after year, we cannot expect to get different results. So if we want to improve our outcomes, we need to redesign our systems. That is the message here. So what is the quality of care definition? Now, WHO has defined quality of care as the extent to which the healthcare services provided to individuals and patient populations improve the desired health outcomes and are consistent with the current professional knowledge. And in order to achieve this, the healthcare must be safe, effective, timely, efficient, equitable, and people-centered. And these are nothing but the domains of healthcare quality. So safe means avoiding harm to patients from the care that is intended to help them. Like, for example, hand wash prior to performing any treatment or feeding to the baby in an ICU so that the infection is avoided. Taking every care in order to avoid the central line related bloodstream infection. Effective means avoiding underuse and misuse. So avoiding the overuse of antibiotics or avoiding a particular treatment modality which is effective. Patient-centered, providing care that is respectful of and responsive to the individual patient preferences. For example, providing developmentally supportive care. So if the child is nicely sleeping, disturbing the child every now and then for recording blood pressure, for checking sugar, for checking temperature is not desirable. So you can time your treatment as per the patient's need. So that is patient-centered care. Another domain is timely treatment, which means reducing waits and harmful delays, both who receive and those who give the care. For example, when we know that surfactant, if given within 2 hours after birth to those babies where it is indicated, gives better outcome. So if we delay the surfactant treatment for whatever reasons beyond 2 hours, it will be harmful. The treatment should be efficient. That means it should avoid waste, including the waste of equipment, supplies, ideas, and energy. And it should be equitable, irrespective of the caste, creed, religion, and the socioeconomic status. Everybody should receive the same quality of care first time and every time. But friends, there are challenges in delivering the quality of care. We often struggle to provide the rapid emergency care needed, especially in maternal and neonatal care. And the common causes are inadequate or unhygienic infrastructure, lack of competent or motivated staff, lack of availability or poor quality of medicines, poor compliance to evidence-based clinical interventions and practices, and poor documentation and use of information. Now, WHO also, in its report on patient safety, found out that there are unique challenges to quality and patient safety in low and middle income group countries. Understaffing, overcrowding, lack of healthcare commodities, shortage of basic equipments, poor hygiene and sanitation, weak safety and quality cultures, flawed processes of care, and disinterested leadership. These are some of the causes which affect the patient safety as well as quality of healthcare. Despite all odds, India has progressed and it has reduced its maternal mortality from 130 in 2014-16 to 122 in 2017. So in a span of 2 years, we have reduced maternal mortality by 8. But there is a lot of intra-country variation. So different states have different maternal mortality, as you can see from the graph. So ranging from 40 odd to 160 odd, such kind of variation which is not acceptable. Similarly, we can see the neonatal mortality. Different states have different neonatal mortality rates, and there is a wide variation also in the urban and rural neonatal mortality rates. So if we want to achieve the Sustainable Developmental Goals of 2030, we will have to reduce this variation. Now, friends, I will draw your attention to this photograph. This is a very recent photograph from an SNCU at a district hospital. You can see the SNCU is very neat and clean. The staff is also working hard. They are taking care of biomedical waste, everything. But the same hospital, we see the status of labor room. So untidy and unhygienic. And if our labor rooms are like this, how can we expect our newborns which are coming to SNCU to remain clean? So we must therefore strive for improving the quality of care and patient safety if we want to accelerate the reductions in maternal and newborn mortality and achieve our SDG goals of 2030. In 2018, the Lancet published its report on global health. And the report said that around 8.5 million lives are lost each year from the lack of good health care. We generally tend to believe that because people are unable to access, unable to utilize the healthcare, that is a major cause of mortality. But friends, this is an eye-opener for all of us. Poor quality of care is a greater contributor to the mortality than non-utilization. More than 60% of the mortality is due to poor quality, despite having access, despite utilizing the healthcare facility. So the biggest killer is the poor quality, and not the non-utilization. Now this is the data from the same Lancet showing the death due to poor quality of care. As you can see, around 1 million newborns die every year due to poor quality, and almost half of the maternal deaths are due to poor quality of care in the low and middle income group countries. Not only deaths, but there are other outcomes of poor quality of care. unnecessary health-related sufferings, persistent symptoms, loss of function, and lack of trust and confidence in health systems. Waste of resources and catastrophic expenditures. These are the economic side effects of poor quality of health systems. And as a result of this, only 1/4 of our people believe that the health system works well. Rest 75% are unhappy with our health systems. So what do we normally do to tackle any clinical problem? Our common solutions are we make guidelines and policy. We build infrastructure, we procure equipment, we train the people, we train the trainers. We monitor and supervise the staff. We also intensifies the work. At times we provide digital solutions like apps, tablets, and sometimes we even do punishments. Friends, we made many guidelines. So many organizations, Government of India, NNF, IIP, all these organizations have developed various evidence-based guidelines. But do guidelines translate into the better care? Let us see. Worldwide, there is a wide variation in compliance to guidelines ranging from 9 to 30% in Italy and UK respectively. And as far as low and middle income group countries like India is concerned, Lancet Commission came out with the data that less than 50% compliance to evidence-based guidelines is there in these countries. So you can understand why guidelines do not translate into better care. Now, Rowe et al. Did a systematic review of interventions to improve the health worker performance. And they came out with the data and they found out the strategies and their median effect size as far as the performance of the health worker is concerned. So they found out that the technology-based strategies, the effect size is only 1%. The printed information in the form of leaflets, booklets, only 1.4%. Financial incentives work only in 1.2% of the times. Training alone around 10%. Supervision alone around 14%. Training along with supervision, the effect is around 18%. Whereas quality improvement, 28%. And if we combine quality improvement with the clinical training, the effect size is much better, 56%. So friends, to ensure compliance with the current best practices at the point of care, the need of the hour is the QI approach, the quality improvement approach. Because the gap between what we know and what we deliver as part of healthcare is widening day by day. And unless we decide to act now, this gap is going to increase further and the catch-up is going to be difficult year after year. Now let us see if coverage is equal to quality of healthcare. Now, we have promoted institutional delivery in India, and our institutional delivery rate has improved both in urban and rural settings, and the average is around 80%. So let us see the coverage of key interventions. So antenatal care, around 45%. Early initiation of breastfeeding, around only 45%. Postnatal visit for the baby by pediatrician, only 33%. Postnatal care for mother, 39%. National availability of emergency obstetric care, 37%. And our rates of exclusive breastfeeding, only 65%. So there is a lot of scope for improvement. So friends, merely providing the infrastructure, merely providing the access is not enough. We need to instill quality in order to provide good health. Now, organizations like WHO and the World Bank Group came out with a statement in the delivering quality health services. And they said that universal health coverage is not a dream for the future. It is already a reality in many countries. We all know that we have Ayushman Bharat Yojana in India as part of universal health coverage. However, without quality health services, it can remain an empty promise. And this foundational report builds a strong technical and political case for investing in quality health services. The collective prize is healthier, safer, and fairer world. So as part of introducing quality improvement the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare introduced this flagship program called Lux, improving the quality of care around the time of birth. So let us find out some of the QI stories, some of the examples, successful examples which have taken place in our country. Now, this is the example from Lady Hardinge Medical College. What they found that the rates of moderate hypothermia in inborn babies were quite high, around 40%. And they use this QI approach, the tools which we are going to discuss later on. And that has resulted in around 90% reduction in moderate hypothermia, around 38% reduction in deaths per 1,000 patient days, and 70% reduction in late onset sepsis per 1,000 patient days. And all these efforts have resulted in 84 additional babies saved in one hospital with one intervention. So this is the power of QI. And this paper has been cited by WHO Global Learning Lab on their website. Also, this paper appeared in the BMJ Open Quality in November 2017. And even the media took note of this. Now, friends, as all of you know, NICU is a highly complex adaptive system that lends itself to the application of quality improvement principles. But the challenge here is that our knowledge is increasing day by day, that there are new interventions coming up every now and then. And those interventions, if applied reliably, they are going to improve our outcomes. But our problem is, even though we have the similar infrastructure, similar expertise, despite correcting for the kind of patient each NICU receives, there is lot of variation in the outcome. So our fundamental problem is the variation, huge variation. So friends, what we need is quality improvement. Now, what is quality improvement? Quality improvement is the combined and unceasing efforts of everyone, all stakeholders, healthcare professionals, patients, their families, the researchers, the payers, the planners, and the educators, to make changes that will lead to better patient outcome, that is better health, better system performance, that is better care, and better professional development, that is better learning. So it is useful to everyone, the patient, the healthcare organization, as well as for our better learning and professional development. Now, quality improvement starts is a process that starts with a quest for perfection. But in this quest of perfection, the usefulness is often lost. So what IHI suggests is seek usefulness and not perfection. And the key is to have a vision for the NICU. We need to develop structures for good care, and we need to ensure that our processes of care, that is the delivery of care, these processes are reliable and consistent. And this will require a clear strategy with principles of quality improvement which are embedded into our strategy. And we need a commitment to continuous improvement and change. Now I'll share how we did it. So we use a simple 4-step approach for delivering quality of care called the point of care quality improvement. Now this is also a model for improvement as suggested by the Institute of Healthcare Improvement. And before we take in any improvement project, we need to answer 3 basic questions. What are we trying to accomplish? How will we know that a change is an improvement? And what change can we make that will result in improvement? So here I have highlighted, or IHI has highlighted we separately, because healthcare is a teamwork. It's not an individual phenomena. It's not only doctors or nurses. It's a teamwork. So a team is important. So team concept is very important. That's why we need all the stakeholders when we undertake any improvement projects. So now let us discuss in short what are the steps in quality improvement using some example. So all the details regarding this, the resources regarding quality improvement are available on our website, which is www.qoc.net.in. So I will just briefly discuss these steps. The step 1 is identifying a problem, forming a team, and writing an aim statement. With my own experience, I tell you, identifying problem itself is a big problem. So when I was asked first time when I attended the first workshop of quality improvement, so what are the problems you are having? So my face was blank. So I had to think a lot before I could identify some of the problems which I could undertake as part of improvement program. So identifying problem itself is a big problem. Just now I told you healthcare is a team phenomena. So even in improvement projects, we need to have a team. We need to have team of all the stakeholders, the doctors, the residents, the nurses, the administrator, the pharmacists, sometimes even the housekeeping staff if the problem is related to that. And of course, community participants, that is the patients and their immediate relatives. All should be part of our team. Unless we analyze and measure the current quality of care, we will not come to know either why we are having this problem and how whether we are improving or not. So that is an important step, analyzing and measuring the quality of care. And once we analyze and measure, and once we found out the root cause of our problem using the tools like Fishbone, Process Flow, Pareto charts, so there are different tools we use to analyze our problem. We need to find out what changes we can make so that will result in improvement. And we need to test these changes on a small sample in order to prevent harm. Like cooking of rice, we just take out few grains and test them whether the rice is cooked or not. We don't take out a complete rice, otherwise it will be all waste if it is not cooked properly. Similarly, we need to test the changes on a small sample for a small period of time and learn from this. And we call them as a PDSA, plan, do, study, act cycles. Most of the organizations do these three steps very well, but they fail to sustain, because sustaining improvement is also a challenge. We need to sustain, and I will tell with the next example which I have undertaken in my unit how to carry out these steps in short. So we decided to reduce the CLABSI rate and thereby the usage of higher antibiotics in neonates admitted in our NICU at Devgiri Children's Hospital, Aurangabad, who underwent the central line placement by adhering to CLABSI bundle care approach. So the incidence was around 18.84% babies were receiving upgraded higher antibiotics, and we wanted to reduce it to less than 10% by 6 months. So this was our project. So we formed the team, including the nurses, the resident doctor, consultant, pharmacist, the X-ray technician, the mother, and our team leader was nurse in charge. So remember, leadership is also very important. Leadership does not mean the hierarchy or the only doctors. We need to create leaders at every level of the system, whether it is a front line, whether it is a managerial level, or whether it is a consultant level or a board level. We need to have leaders at different levels in order to succeed and sustain the improvements. So we analyzed and measured our quality of care by using some measures. So we had process measures because we decided to use the CLABSI bundle. So we wanted to know the adherence to that. And we had two outcome measures in the form of CLABSI rate and use of higher antibiotics. So we all the team stakeholders had a meeting, and we discussed all the possible root causes of why we are having the CLABSI rate of 17 per 1,000 catheter days and needing almost 1 in 5 babies needing upgradation of antibiotics and being labeled as CLABSI, either culture proven or clinical CLABSI. Although the culture CLABSI rate was pretty low, but we were treating some of the patients as CLABSI because of the sepsis screen was positive and there were no other source. So all the possible root causes usually we discuss among the team members. So when the root cause is complex, we use this fishbone diagram. So as all of you know, there are four pillars of any healthcare system. So these are the 4 pillars of this diagram. So the policy. So there was no written policy. There was no written protocol for insertion or maintenance. and there was no policy regarding duration of line, when to remove and how long to keep. Some of the staff said that probably the staff is not trained for preparation of drum and card, or the new staff may not be having undergone training for proper hand washing and maintenance bundle. Some of the procedure related issue might be contributing to the high CLABSI rate. Maybe no proper hand hygiene, improper skin antisepsis, the dressing is not covering properly the insertion area, and so on and so forth. So we discuss all the possible root causes. We also, since it was a flow process, we also had drawn the process flow chart of the current process which was in action at that time, trying to identify what are the possible flaws in the process. And we came out with certain change ideas, and we tested these ideas one by one. So in total we had 9 change ideas, and we did 9 PDSA cycles. So plan, do, study, act. As I told you, we tested these ideas on a small sample for a small period of time and learned from those ideas, and finally modified them, and according to our circumstances, according to our context, and then applied them successfully. And these are the results. So this is a process that is adherence to CLABSI bundle. As you can see, most of the components of this are almost 95 to 100% adherence, barring a few. And this has resulted in successfully getting our CLABSI rates as per our aim statement to less than 10%. And this study was taken in was conducted in 2018, and we could sustain these changes into the complete calendar year 2019, and this is the data of 2019. As you can see, there was 0 culture positive CLABSI, and there was only 1 clinical CLABSI where the antibiotic upgradation was done. And the second outcome which we were studying was our use of higher antibiotics. So in 2018, around 15% of admissions needed upgraded antibiotics, whereas in 2019, that percentage dropped down to 10. So there was a 35% reduction in use of higher antibiotics. By simply improving CLABSI, we could reduce the antibiotic usage in our unit. Now, sustaining the results, how we did it. So to sustain the result, we prepared a new SOP with the new processes and for central line insertion. We trained people for that. We made the new charts available. We also felicitated the staff which worked very hard in a particular month by giving them the certificate of quality champion of the month. We celebrated the CLABSI free month. And the last 2 are very important aspects I am going to highlight. That we provided the psychological safety to the staff and distributed the leadership. What do I mean by that? So we designated 1 staff as a change idea, so that staff is in charge of the particular process of line insertion. That staff will monitor with the charts, the process flow charts, whether the processes are going appropriately or not, and document that. So we provided the psychological safety to that by telling those staff that even if a doctor is missing something or doing something wrong, you have to pinpoint and you will not be scolded. In fact, you will be felicitated by certificate of quality champion if you identify those steps which are wrong or which are not done as per the process. And by doing that, we also distributed leadership. So the ownership was there, and that is the why we could sustain the changes throughout the calendar year 2019. But friends, let me tell you, the tools are very good. The point of quality care improvement is definitely useful, and if you use it appropriately, you will definitely succeed. But sustaining is the key. And when we want to change somebody's way of work, which they are doing for years together, we encounter resistance. So in order to mitigate that resistance, in order to sustain the results, we need to embrace this resistance. We need to understand the change management also. We need to understand the psychology of change. We need to unleash the intrinsic motivation of all the healthcare workers, tap into their sources of intrinsic motivation. That leads to collective commitment to act. We need to design the new processes of healthcare along with them and not for them. So that is co-designing the people-driven change. Because those who are most affected by the change are the greatest uh, having the greatest interest in designing the new process that is meaningful and workable to them. We need to co-produce in authentic relationship with all the stakeholders and distribute power so that people can contribute and bring about the changes. Now, why we need quality improvement? Even though you may be working in a setting with ample resources, or you may be working in a resource constrained settings, but are you able to deliver the highest possible level of care to your patients? Are you still worried that despite seeking accreditations, the team dynamics or processes in your settings are not optimal? Are you satisfied with the clinical outcomes of your patients? Do you believe you can improve the clinical outcomes, but things just don't work, people don't listen, system just does not work in your favor? Is the patient satisfied with your level of care? So what is the satisfaction index of your patients? Is your system efficient, transparent, equitable, affordable, and gender sensitive? Do you see any scope of improvement in your settings beyond what you have achieved till now? And if any of these questions are bothering you and you are looking for solutions, quality improvement may be a perspective changing experience for you. I will just list some of the examples in a day-to-day practice where quality improvement can be useful to you. People have worked for in n number of problems, use this methodology and improved and sustained their outcomes. Some of these examples are reducing sepsis, CLABSI, ventilated associated pneumonias, reducing bronchopulmonary dysplasia, retinopathy of prematurity, necrotizing enterocolitis, reducing CPAP nasal injury, reducing unplanned extubation, increasing use of mother's own milk in preterm, reducing waiting time in OPD, improving the discharge processes, increasing the developmentally supportive care and kangaroo mother care in NICU, improving the follow-up of NICU graduates, improving hand hygiene and sanitizer use, especially in this COVID era. I tell you, in 2017, when we conducted a workshop in Aurangabad, I went to the Dean of the Medical College, GMC Aurangabad, and requested her presence as a chief guest for the inaugural function. And her initial response was that क्वालिटी इंप्रूवमेंट ये सब प्राइवेट के लिए होगा, हम तो गवर्नमेंट सेटअप में काम करते हैं, यहाँ वर्कलोड इतना है, यहाँ कहाँ इतना टाइम दे सकते हैं हम. बट फ्रेंड्स, the staff in GMC Aurangabad worked very hard. The nurses there, they were motivated so much. They carried out these projects, the improving the follow-up of NICU graduate, and they improved their follow-up rate from less than 20 to more than 60%. They improved their KMC rates significantly under the guidance of their head of the department, Dr. L.S. Deshmukh, who motivated them to undertake these projects. And friends, I tell you, now GMC Aurangabad is buzzing with quality improvement. They have taken so many projects and they have improved the care. And that has resulted in a lot of job satisfaction to them, as well as satisfaction to their patients' outcome. So friends, mere knowledge does not translate to on-ground action. We need to work simultaneously on the domains of opportunity. We need to provide the enabling environment, upgrade our skills, motivate our healthcare staff, and provide them resources. We must identify the bottlenecks. And if we work on those bottlenecks, we can improve the processes and outcomes of the cares. So use simple point of care quality improvement methodology to bridge the no-do gap. Teamwork is very important, and have a problem solving approach rather than the blaming approach. Synergize your work with the vision or targets of the national or the state health system. We can teach you the tools of point of quality care improvement in a 2-day workshop. But friends, the main learning of QI is in doing it. We know the problems what we face. We have the data. We have the age-old tools to fix the problems. Should we stick to this obsolete methodology or move to some evidence-based skill to improve the implementation and co-produce with the community? You have to decide. And the elevators to success is out of order. You have to use the stair. One step at a time is the best way to go. I take this opportunity to introduce our network to you, which is called as Nationwide Quality of Care Network. And we started, the like-minded people all over India, we started this network with the vision to empower our healthcare professionals to continuously improve the quality of care, and a mission to improve the quality of health services across all healthcare delivery systems of India. And our areas of operations are pre-service education, that is the undergraduate as well as medical and nursing education. In service, that is doctors, organizations, the like IIPs and NNS. The National Health Mission, mainly in the state of Meghalaya, MP, Delhi, Maharashtra, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Rajasthan. And we are partnering with WHO, UNICEF, IIP, NTS London, and MJIMS Sevagram. We also are involved in training of the frontline health worker in the form of ASHA workers in quality improvement. And we are technical partners to Government of India for Lux program. And our presence is there in more than 10 states across the country. We are lead partners to Government of India for the Lux National Mentoring Program, which is a program for improving the care around birth. And our presence is there on the Lux Gallery, as you can see. So we undertake 2 days quality of care improvement workshops, and we also train the trainers. So we also conduct experience sharing, which is the best way to learn from each other. So this is a photograph showing partners forum, where almost 50 partners were invited, and they shared their experiences of quality improvement. Last but not the least, I would like to end with the statement which appeared in the Lancet Global Health. Quality should not be the purview of the elite or an aspiration of some distant future. It should be the DNA of all health systems. The human right to health is meaningless without good quality care, because health system cannot improve care without it. Thank you very much. So if there are questions, I will be happy to answer them. So one question I received is, what is the difference between accreditation and quality improvement? So friends, we need both. But there is a difference between accreditation and quality improvement. Is accreditation is nothing but quality assurance. So it assures you a certain level of quality in your health systems. It assures you certain system is some structures and equipments and the processes which are there in your system. The difference is in accreditations or the quality assurance, somebody else comes from the outside, assesses your setting for a short period of time, has a checklist, fills that checklist, tick, 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 and submits the report. Whereas quality improvement is internally driven. So those stakeholders which are there in the hospital or healthcare settings, they drive the improvement programs. So those who are at the forefront of healthcare delivery, they are driving this program. Now, we need both quality assurance as well as quality improvement, because without standardization, you cannot improve. So quality assurance provides you the standardization. So this is how what the care should be. Whereas quality improvement identifies the gaps in that care and tries to improve that gap and sustain the changes.